Skal vi starte?
Den her. Og jeg er maskinmester, så vi prøver jo lidt frem. Jeg siger, det er måske ikke specielt effektivt, det her.
Well, I think it's a sound. It's just to hear what the yeah.
Er det godt nok, nu skal jeg slukke det andet også?
Sehr schön. Fint, yes.
Yes, good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to this afternoon lecture regarding cultural differences and China and Denmark with Chinese eyes and so on. Today our guest speaker is Qi Zang from Hangzhou.
Close to Hangzhou, yeah.
Yes, who is working at the engineering department at the University of Aarhus. He's been here for a number of years, teaches primarily in computer engineering and network, and she is a very good witness to the idea of coming from another country and looking at Denmark. I won't say more about our presenter. She's probably going to introduce herself.
Yeah.
So, please welcome Qi Zang.
Good afternoon. I'm very glad to see so many audience here. So my name is Qi Zang, and I have been in Denmark for more than 10 years. And I came here as a master student, and I got my master degree in DTU and later on PhD. Then I stay. So I don't know how many years I will stay here more, but I think I'm so far so good. I love being here. So today I will talk about, something about my view about, compared to China and Denmark. So before I start, I just want to show you a very short video.
Is all this the achievement of capitalism or of communism? Of the Western free market or of traditional Chinese values?
As I was just explaining to my friend here, the way the Chinese think is as different from the way we think as the way they write. And that's why I almost feel a little bit like an alien from another planet when I come here. All the basic assumptions that I've grown up with, particularly about individual freedom, just don't apply here. It's a little bit as if I'd grown up on the moon and was used to leaping around effortlessly and then suddenly found myself on Earth, weighed down by gravity.
Yeah, so that's, of course, this is a very good video. I will recommend it to you to watch when you have time. So, oops, what's happened here? Okay, so you have seen that many of the assumptions that you used to be, that you're feeling that it's maybe not the hold anymore in China. So that's why we need to know a little bit about China if you want to go to China doing business or study. So before we start, I just wanted to make a small quiz about how much you know about China. So we know Denmark, we have a population about 5.6 million. Do you know what's the population in China? Approximately. Louder. 2 billion? 1.4. Oh, that's a very close number. Yes, that's right. We have about 1.3, 1.4 million. Denmark has about 43,000 square kilometers. What is about China? How many times China, the size of China? 10 times, 50 times, 100 times, or 200 times? How many people think that's 200 times? Oh, we got a lot of good answers. Yes, approximately 200 times. So we can see actually the population is about a little bit over 200 times. The size is also about a little bit over 200 times. Do you know what's the size of whole Europe? Actually close to, it's slightly bigger than China. It's probably about 10 million, a little bit more than 10 million square kilometers. So you can see that population and the size, so the density actually is quite similar, the density. Even though we always have impression that China has a lot of people, But if you look at the average density, but of course because this is average, it's not, in China, the population distribution is very different, it's not uniform distributed. Most of the people is located on the coast, and even now because more job opportunities in the big city, a lot of people living for example, in the west and the inland, in the southwest or southwest and the northwest, they move to the east and to the east coast. So that's why, for example, in Shanghai, then the population density will be much, much high. But we know in Denmark, the political regime is democratic country. So we have elections. But in China, we know that in China is a one-party ruling country. So it means it's a kind of dictatorship. I think to know those facts can help us to understand some of the reasons why people behave, why people think. Because there's always some reasons behind it. You know that I think Danes are very patient. For example, we often see Danes are quite good when we waiting in the lines, for example, when we pay to eat in the grocery store. But sometimes some people think Chinese seem impatient. You often see people wanted to cut in the queue, people are very hurried. One of the Danish lady, she has been in China for many years, and she told me one of the things that she learned in China is how to buy train ticket. Because every time she going to buy train ticket, but that was in the old days, because now you can buy in China, you can also buy online, so you buy e-bookings, no problem. But in the old days, she told me that she had to make sure that she get cash or ready. Because normally in Denmark, you buy train ticket, you say, oh, good day, and then you start to take the wallet and counting the coins. But then in China, they say, next, you wait, next, because there's no time for her to take time to pay the ticket. So that's what she learned. Danes like hygge. So we always say, tak for sist, det var meget hyggeligt. But I think, of course, hygge is very difficult to translate to proper words, maybe cozy, but it's not exactly equal to cozy. But I think not so many Chinese fully understand what hygge means, because things cannot be too pushed. I think, of course, we can push in the work, but if pushed too much, then probably will break. And then no, let's stop, I cannot do anymore, But I think Chinese have an incredible capacity to endure. So for example, a lot of long working hours, even longer and longer, Some people even can, for some of my friends, they work so hard. I often doubted if they have any time to sleep. And I often see that a lot of Chinese, they seems like, like you can imagine, like a grass is even under in the corner or under some stone, or as long as give a little bit of water or sunshine, and then they can grow, no matter how difficult the condition is. That's why we can also see that a lot of Chinese in overseas, any country, no matter where, in Africa, in South America, anywhere, Chinese people can always survive. Of course, I also survived in Denmark. Actually, Chinese and the culture with Danish culture has something in common as well. For example, jantelov. In Denmark, we have jantelov, means that we have to be modest, have to be humble. This is very similar as what Confucius say. Confucius say that in a group of 3 people, there's always something I can learn from. That means also Chinese people regard being modest is a good merit, you know. So it's a good way to be humble. And another is hospitality. And I think if Danes, sometimes a lot of people say, yeah, Danes are a little bit cold, you know. Yes, that's true. But I know that if you become a good friend of Danes, then they treat you really well. And they will invite you to home, and they prepare very good dinner, and using, you know, many courses, and, you know, and different wines and liquors. I say similar like China. And Chinese people even if some family may not be so rich, but they always will provide the best they can to serve you. So this is very similar, I will say. But now let's look at, some people think that I think that Danes are demanding, because Danes are demanding regarding the public services or welfare. For example, Danes often talk about, always a lot of complaints in the media, say, oh, what's the problem in our bus service, or our train, DSB train was delayed, and so on and so forth. And a lot of complaint about the waiting time to see a doctors, and the time, the performance in the primary school, and the pension systems, and, you know, not enough care for our elderly people, and so on. So you can always hear a lot of, you know, in the TV, in media. But honestly, from my point of view, that in Denmark, the DSB service, well, if not give 5 star, at least 4 star, I would say it's really good service. I remember once that the train was delayed for more than 2 hours. That was horrible because of you know, thunderstorm, and the flash, you know, broken the light, the traffic light. But at a very late night, around like 2 o'clock, they fix it, and they let the train running. And when I was on the train, and the conductor was saying that in the broadcast, they say, well, please remember to get your train ticket refunded, because the train was delayed more than 2 hours. It was incredible service. And they said even in some of the stop, because the night bus was gone, you know, there's no night bus anymore, they said, yeah, we will already arrange the taxis waiting for you there to get, you can get the taxi. It's incredible. But sometimes I think Chinese are very easy with. For example, I think Chinese are very easily get satisfied with the public service. For example, if people, you know, get on the bus, if there's idle seats, people get, today I'm very lucky. And for example, if in the, you know, peak, you know, kind of traffic season, for example, during the Chinese New Year around, or some holidays, if people can get a train ticket with a seat, it's very good. And people will be very happy that if they can get a register to see a doctor. For example, sometimes if you want to see a good doctor, then you have to use different relations or friendship and find the right people to get in touch with those doctors. And regarding the school, actually this is quite a big issue as I see now in China, that it's very difficult to get the kids to enroll into the right school. And you probably have heard about the, you know, people are spending huge money to buy a small flat just to make their kids be eligible to go to the school in that, you know, district. This is not joke. I mean, for example, you know, in Shanghai, people pay about like 100,000 per square meter for a flat. For example, recently I saw a news, a guy paid 2.75 million to buy a small flat, only 27 square meters. And then he even hasn't, before he saw the flat, immediately he said, when the agent called him, yeah, there's a flat is available. Do you want it? Yes, I want it. I immediately transfer $500,000 to the bank account. So I don't need to see it. As long as this flat can make my kids go to the school. So this is incredible. And actually, this is a huge problem because now you can see if you are not able to pay that money to buy a small flat in that district, which means then your kids may not be able to access the good education resources. And the direction is now that before, when I was studying, if the family poor or rich, yeah, there's some differences, but we still can, by working hard, we still can be, a good student. We still can go to university. So you can still become elite. But now the problem is that imagine the young kids, if their family is not that rich, which means that they are not able to access the good education resources, which means that is a polarization. I will talk about economic polarization later, but here just to mention about that the elite, so more and more elite, they are actually coming from the rich families. That is actually a trend. And also, I think many people in China, they are out of the pension system. So now let's talk about the face. What face means to Chinese? So face means that if you translate in English, we say wash your dirty linen at home. So meaning that keep up appearances. I think that is, if we do like as a basic level, that's okay, it's understandable. Every human being has wanted to keep up appearances. But if we become too extreme, then this becomes a little bit problematic. This can be reflected at each unit in the society, every family, company, and even to the state. For example, as a normal individuals, people very often are very reluctant to admit a mistake. They always try to find some kind of excuse to keep the face. But if you look at this, as an individual, might be okay, sometimes we can tolerate that, let's say. But let's say to a state, that is sometimes, I would say, is unacceptable because very often that they will cover up the truth. For example, after some catastrophe or you have this contagious disease or some other things, then you never know the number, how many people died or injured during that accident. And this also, of course, also will relate to the media freedom because there's no media freedom, so then you cannot know the truth. Another thing is because of the face, because wanted to have a good face towards outside, there are a lot of many irrational decisions we call irrational face projects. And then they are using the taxpayers' money. They want to, for example, to show the power of the state or the province or the city. Typically, for example, probably some of you still remember the opening ceremony of Olympic Games in Beijing, that it spent a huge amount of money, but that was really magnificent, right? It's beautiful. But on the other hand, also a lot of Danes, they think that it's really overspending. And also another example, as it happened recently, that I think in the beginning of September, probably you know that the G20 top meeting was in China. That was in my hometown, in Hangzhou. That was only 2 days, September 4th and the 5th. But just because of these 2 days, Hangzhou, they spent multiple billion pounds to doing the preparation. And they spend money, to renovate the highways and paint the facade of the buildings for free, So that's good for the normal residents. So they paint all the buildings, and they plant the trees. And then the worst thing is they force people to leave the city because they don't want to make the city look so crowded. So they propose a lot of kind of policies that, they make this 7 days, they make 1 week, before the conference. That is 7 days public holiday. So people, for example, the residents in Hangzhou, they will have that free this 7 days public holiday with paid, okay, that's good. And then a lot of tourist agents, they offer different tourist, tourism package. So they can travel to the nearby cities with a very cheap price. They just want to offer a lot of things, force people, or maybe say give some incentive, let people to leave the city. And then all the non-Hangzhou residents, for example, like a master student or PhD student or other workers, like normal labor workers in Hangzhou, then you have to leave from August 1st. At that time, I was a visitor. I have to chat with a professor in Zhejiang University, and they said, yeah, they had to do that. And all the master and PhD students they had to leave because they want to make the city looks neat and nice, beautiful. And then also, for example, because of want to keep the faces, very often you can see that China's a lot of economic figures are in a way are manipulated. So a lot of people kind of don't trust those numbers, the growth rate, but those numbers, for example, it's very important. For example, what is the growth rate of GDP? That is a way to show that the prosperity in China. And now let's talk about yes or no, what it means. I think in Denmark, if people want to say no, that to give your opinion is explicit. So which means that if they don't say no, which means yes. In Denmark we say den der ties samtykke. So if you keep silent, means you agree. If you don't agree, then you will immediately say no. But in China, if you use this assumption in China, that will not work. If you wanted to know a Chinese, if let's say Chinese has a different, opposite opinion, they are implicit. They don't say. They keep silent, which means that here said it does not mean yes if one does not say no. So I think this is very important if you do business in China. If you're doing international project, working with for example, other engineers in the same project. If you want to ask the opinions, if you agree with our plan, or you have to ask, especially in a big open meetings, let's say a round table meetings. Sometimes, traditional Chinese, they don't say, oh, I don't agree with this, and not that direct. But in meeting, I would say, because I've been living here so many years. So, but if you want to know the true opinion, you need to maybe talk to the person individually. Then you can get the true opinion. By the way, if you have any questions, you can always stop me, and or if you want me to have some more elaboration about some of the statements. The relationship for business. I think the relationship and networking, that is always important no matter where. And I think, of course, in Denmark, it's also of some importance. For example, if you get a good recommendation from an important person, and then it's good for you, a career, to find a job. But in China, that is of paramount importance. I have some Danish friends, they're doing business in China. And the problem is that is the first Chinese words they learn that is 关系. 关系 means a relationship. So they speak this they can able to pronounce this very well. 关系. And in China, the 关系 people, get the relations through family or relatives, and then the classmates, alumni and friends. So that is how people build, kind of relationship. People just find something in common. We are graduated from the same university, or we coming from the same city, or something else. Then of course the best if you have some family relationship. That would be very good for you to be doing business. But that actually also later on, because of this kind of tradition, this also relates to what I will talk about, the corruptions, because of everything you need the 关系 is not based on your capability or competencies. So then make things a little bit, in a way that is a little bit unfair, in a way that So that's why people need make a corruption doing, other type of. People wanted to kind of have a relation with the people in the power, so have this kind of money and the power exchange, or let's say, or collaboration. So now let's talk about the trust among people. In Denmark, I think people are very trustworthy. Actually, there's a Oxford University Business School. They have done some research about it. Regarding the trust, Danes should be very proud of that. Danes is a champion regarding the trust. And so, for example, a lot of Danes, they have made a kind of surveys. Danes are willing to trust strangers, even they don't know this person, but they trust people. I had some good experience here. For example, once, the first time to send my car to service. So I send my car in the morning, and I give my car key, and the guy said, okay, you can pick up before 5 o'clock, and that's it. Then I look at him, say, is there no any receipt or any note? It seems that he had no any intention to give me something. He just said, okay, you just come back, before 5 o'clock. But then I said, okay, that's Denmark. So of course, when I came back, in the afternoon, my car's still there. So I just tell what was my, the plate number, and then I got my car. But in China, probably you will ask something, receipt or something. So this is also about trust. So because of this kind of trust, make all the process is very easy. So you don't need to do a lot of administrative work and to ensure this kind of trust. Also, for example, in Denmark, when we can often see that, there's a lot of some unwatched, barnacle in the corridor, in the apartment, or outside of shops. But that is, to Chinese, this is incredible. How you can just leave the kids, pram outside the shop, on the street, and no one watch it. I mean, and sometimes I also see, in my apartment, that the parents I have partying at the home, and the kids are sleeping quite sweetly, in the corridor. But this is safe. It's very safe. And sometimes I go to small villages. I even see the small people sell those, strawberry or honey, the honey, and they put some coin there. You can buy it yourself, self-service purchase. It's really nice. But I think the trust in China, it's a little bit problematic. So generally speaking, that there are lack of trust among people. You can see that this is often called the crisis of confidence. And you can see this between, for example, the government and the general public. For example, as I mentioned, because of the, no media freedoms and many things, you cannot trust the, for example, economic figures. And you don't know what talk about in the news is true or not. So that's why people know this may not be true. But then they try to intend not to believe anything. So they really lack of the trust to the government. And there's also distrust among the product producers and the consumers. You probably know a lot of the food safety issue in China. And because of you probably have heard of the poisoned milk powder several years ago. Because of that incident, now a lot of Chinese tourists, if they coming to Europe or to Australia, they empty the shelf of the supermarket. They bought all the milk powder because they don't dare to drink the domestic produced milk powder. Why? Because the lack of trust. Because they're afraid their own baby maybe got the same problem. So I think it's really because of those product producers, they are lack of they have a very low moral standard, and they are very much profit driven. So that's why they can do this. Honestly, I could not imagine any product producers. They even can, even doing something bad on other things, but never doing something on the product for baby. So this is, make a lot of distrust. And then also between the, kind of distrust among the different individuals, even between the family members. That is, it has some historical reasons. For example, in the during the cultural revolutions, and because a lot of people are quite brainwashed, and people say, you have to be loyal to the party, you have to follow the guidance of the party. So in case if someone has a different opinion or slightly different, different opinion or view than what the party said, then this should be reported, exposed. So there's so many cases that, enormous cases, I would say, that the student expose their teacher if the teacher says something in the classroom. Or the kids can expose their parent if the parent says something at home that is not aligned with the party policy, for example. So this kind of distrust also among individuals. It's a little bit unfortunate, but that is really happening. So now let's look at how the attitude towards the environment and the nature. I think in Denmark, we are very environmental friendly. For example, we advocate the green energy, and we use the windmill, and we focus very much about that. For example, we use what's called the affaldsvarme. This we collecting the trash and then we reuse it. This is it's a really good way to keep the environment clean. But in China, I think environmental problem is one of the most concerned problem, as similar as food safety. Since 1950s, after 1949, that the Communist Party, they advocate the nature remodeling, which means that they want to change the nature. They think that human being can always conquer the nature. So, for example, they do this with a great enthusiasm. Then, for example, in the internal Mongolia, that has a grassland. In the old days, grassland. But then they want to transform the grassland into the farmland. At the beginning, because grassland, they are very rich, the soil, everything's very rich. So maybe the first few years, great, they have the harvest, the great harvest. But then after several years, those grassland become, because the normal, crop, they cannot host the sand, the soil. And then after several years, this grassland the farmland gradually desertized, become a desert. So that's why, in the spring, every year in the spring in Beijing, that always has a sandstorm. Why? Where the sand comes from? From internal Mongolia. That is a consequence. So, for example, also probably you have heard about the Three Gorges Dam. Three Gorges Dam, that they want to build a dam in the Yangtze River, and they expected to produce a huge amount of electrical power. But in the reality, actually, that is only produce not only media kind of a power plant kind of volume. But the problem is that Three Gorges Dam is completely destroy the eco balance around the Yangtze River. So very often you can see that in the summertime, some neighbor cities, one neighbor province, has flooding, another one has drought. So which that is caused by the eco balance is broken. So, and also a lot of, you can see that, later I will show you some pictures, that a lot of plant, for example, because of they are driven by the improving the economic growth. And then very often you can see that a lot of plant that they are maybe dealing with some toxic material or produce chemical things. They don't have a complete, for example, post-processing, and then they just, send the water directly to the river, or maybe to the underground. So in China now, I think, I don't know exactly the number, but actually probably more than 70% the underground water has polluted. That is a huge problem. It's even worse than the air. So, but the thing is that now people start to get concerned because of this, poison, the smog, and many things happening in China. People start to aware of that. People want now. I think the state, they also plan to take some, method to try to release or relieve to do something about it. But before, why not so much, care about it? That one of the reasons is, if you evaluate the KPI of, for example, the mayor or the head of the province, that is the GDP. So GDP is always give higher priority than the environment. If you said, oh, I keep our city environment very well, but that is not part of the GDP KPI, evaluation. So that's lack of incentives. So now I think the Chinese people are really have to pay the huge consequences. Have to pay the huge prices for the consequences. But actually, if you look at the Asian China is very similar, like Denmark. Asian China, we always, believe kind of, everything should be harmonized, harmony between the heaven, the earth, and the human. So we always said, yes, we should, exploit the nature, but when we exploit the nature, we have to follow the law of the nature. That is kind of philosophy or principle that the Asian, the Chinese people, they always hold on. I hope that now people can more use this kind of way to when they exploit the nature. So for example, now let's look some pictures. Now this is, in Beijing, that there's some sandstorm in the spring. So this is some smog in the winter. That is Tiananmen Square, but you hardly can see the Tiananmen Square. And this is 2 foreign tourists. They are taking pictures. And that, I can't remember, this maybe in 2013 or 2014, they have the marathon competition in Beijing. So, and we also have a lot of polluted rivers and lakes. So it's incredible. It's very sad to see that. Okay, I think, should we have a break now? Should we have a short break? Yeah? Oh, it's already 2. Is it 2? 2 for 5 minutes?
5 minutes?
Yeah.
5 minutes?
I look at the time. I forgot that it's to half 2. Yeah.
This is roughly in the middle. And 5 minutes are okay.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Fremlægge i morgen i forvejen. Det der kapitel, de har. Så jeg tror næsten, at de slipper for det forestille. Morgen er jo A, B og C, kan helt vant til at fremlægge spørgsmål 1. Så er der C, F og G til at fremlægge spørgsmål 2. Og G-gruppen, de har allerede fremlægget i morgen, så det kan godt være fedt, så er det kun lige efter for at svare.
Det er Lady, der brænder sådan. Jeg så bare, det så det ud.
Hvad er det, der sætter bag? Nej.
Det var meget værre. Ikke engang, der var det var ganske fornuftigt. Der var der også nogen, der ikke gjorde det bedre, så der kunne du bare nærmest ikke se ud derfra. Og så lidt af det, ikke så du prøver bare at tage. Det var bedre, den jeg lavede til 3. Jeg tror, jeg lavede ude i Sønderborg, så der havde de også diskuteret mig. Der er jeg...
Lidt for væk.
Jeg var noget lignende. De her billeder, der er mål noget dårligt lærer. Det viser sig bare at se min krop og bare i stedet for. Det er ikke en skide bare at sætte mig over for min tarm. Det er bare at se min krop. Så er det ikke bare den dag, hvor man ikke gik noget på.
Det er mærkeligt, at den der skole op i stedet for. Er det ikke mærkeligt for, at den ikke får lige på fire? Nå, okay. Man vælger selv, når vi selv går den sær, man kan få maskinen til det.
Det er ikke så meget, jeg har det. Altså alle de fine steder. Det er de fine chefer, så er man hjemme med dem. De kører også bare med. Det er sådan en luksus til. De spolerør.
Shall we start? Yeah. 2 more minutes. Okay. Yeah. Sorry? Yangtze River. Yangtze River. Yangtze River is very long. It crossed from the started from the southwest.
Så har du, det er lettere, hvad der det er det, I slås med.
Start from somewhere.
Det skal vi.
Yeah, so it's very long. Cross over China.
Er det? Nå, det så vi ikke, men det. Stop.
So, welcome back. So, let's start again. So now let's talk about the individualism. In Denmark, I think the entire society that we respect the need of each individual. But in nowadays China, I would say that the society does not that much advocate the individualism and it very much focus on the collective. So for example, if you wanted to really distinguish yourself, or maybe when this actually starts even in the in the primary school, that you have to be similar with the other kids, and so you don't want to have a complete different opinion. That is not the teacher or think that it's not a good idea. And here, for example, people can read whatever you like to read and on the internet. But I think in China, that there's probably also know that there's information censorship. So it means in China, actually, internet is quite developed. Internet speed is also very fast, and e-commerce is very popular. Taobao, and you buy things on the internet. Everything's very advanced. But however, regarding the information, that if you search some sensitive words in the search engine, then probably they give you answer, according to the law or something, a legal issue that we cannot show the page, so you cannot find the information. And also video as well. And then here in Denmark, people can think independently and freely. And they say, of course, everybody can think independently freely. But I think in China, you probably heard about the thoughts education. What is thoughts education? So it means if you think very differently, and then you will be sent to some kind of intensive, kind of labor camp or some places, and to go through some kind of thoughts education. Sounds unbelievable, but that is true. And I think here people can believe. I think you have different religions, different beliefs here. And here also people have the, speech freedom. That is, utterance freedom. I think what I'm talking here about is very basic kind of rights. But I think in China people don't have this belief freedom. So it means, for example, that's why a lot of people with belief, like Tibetans or like house Christians or Falun Gong practitioners, they are being persecuted or suppressed. And generally speaking, that there's no speech freedom, so there's no media freedom. And for example, regarding the censorship, also for example, in all the film, video, and the TV episode has to go through a lot of kind of organizations through the censorship. So it means to ensure that all the content in the TV episode and the film is okay. So I think one of the famous film director, Feng Xiaogang, he say that, well, if the film have to go through 30 different organizations to check the content, and very often all the, slightly, because it means here's a frame. If the content or the story or some of the words in the film are slightly outside of the frame, then have to be cut. So very often in the end, that the result, the final film is not that the director originally wanted to be. So that's why he said if Chinese film want to win an Oscar award, then we have to wait. And I think the people here are very creative. So for example, we are very proud of our Danish design. So if you want to design something, you have to be creative. Otherwise, you cannot design something make innovations. But I would say actually Chinese people are also quite creative. And because we have nearly 1.4 billion people, so we have also a lot of smart heads. But I'm talking here is more from from general speaking, like, that if you look at it on the average, I think people's creativity actually, it to large extent is constrained because you have some kind of frame that if you want to create some good literature, write a good article, poem, and then you are limited. You are limited by the frame. And for example, also, probably you have also heard about that in the university in China, there's a so-called 7 forbidden kind of topics. For example, student or teacher should not not discuss about universal values, should not talk about the media freedom, because these are very sensitive. I should not talk about the civil society, should not talk about the civic rights, and should not talk about the mistake of the party, and should not talk about the judicial independence, and should not talk about the crony capitalism. And those are the 7 topics are forbidden. And I think last year, or I cannot remember exact time, I think the Minister of the Education, he said we have to throw out the Western ideology out of our textbook. That is, but actually Marxism is from West, from Europe. So a bit ironic, but that is the reality. So I think if something I'm talking this in the Chinese university, probably I will throw out of China. Okay, just to give you an example, a little bit elaborate about the internet censorship. So we have this in China. There, even though the internet speed is very fast, but for example, there's a great firewall. Those great firewall is kind of block all the website outside China. For example, people cannot use Wikipedia. People cannot use Facebook. And the worst thing is, this summer I was in China, and I cannot use Gmail. That is what's killing me. I cannot use Gmail because normally I can just check my Gmails on my phones. But if I want to check my Gmail, I have to use my computer, and I log on, use a VPN, log on to the AU Oxford University through the VPN. Then I'm very, very slow, and then I can check my Gmail. Unfortunate. So, and then there are, according to the report in the 2013, there are about 2 million internet police. So what their job is, sitting in front of screen and to see who writes something, who sends something, anything sensitive, or if someone, for example, put some sensitive pictures or videos on their blogger, and then this person will immediately contact or invited to the police station to have a chat, to maybe have they always invited to have a cup of tea. And according to the Amnesty International, that in China has the largest recorded number of imprisoned journalists and cyber dissidents in the world. According to the Amnesty International 2012 annual report, that China spent about $112 billion that is spent on this. Suppress their own people, and this number is more than the military expense. So they use this money to pay these 2 million, internet police, and to house arrest, those dissidents or many other things.
The 2 million are those people working.
Yeah, this is their job.
People working. This is their job.
Yeah,
2 million people.
Yeah, so 2 million internet police, people. Yeah, so this is of course, provide a good job opportunity, increase job opportunity. But even though this number is kind of scary, but I'm still positive, because I think more and more internet is something that is a technology that is to help us to share the information, And with advances of the internet, I think even though they can block a lot of things, but it's still more and more difficult to block information. And also now with smartphones, if something is happening and people just took a picture and upload. And then maybe after half an hour or 1 hour and maybe half day, and this picture, pictures are deleted. But then this picture maybe already be forwarded to somewhere else, maybe already forwarded to the Europe or America, and already have another copy in the server somewhere else, and we can still see it. And this happens many times. And when I talk to my sister, she says, can you still see such picture? I said, yes. Oh, we cannot see this kind of picture anymore, because they might see a very short time, but then everything's gone. But we have a copy outside China. So, and also more and more people are bloggers, and they're using the social network, social media, for example, WeChat. And I often see a lot of some very critical kind of articles or maybe sensitive news in WeChat, but then maybe after a very short time, and if you want to see again, it's not there anymore. But I still believe that more and more people are awakening, and there's also people after good education, and they can distinguish what is good and what is not, what is right and what's not right. And if we talk about the decision, how the decision is made, I think in Denmark we always encourage debate. So always a two-side, people want to hear different views. One good example I always want to use that is Ved Qi Zang in Copenhagen, that 2012. And actually that decision was written into the Hagenian law. And they wanted to make this, paid ring in Copenhagen. But then afterwards, all the Copenhageners, people living in Copenhagen, they did not like it. So then the government said, yeah, okay, you don't like it, no, let's cancel the decision. That's how things work, because this government is elected by people. If people don't like it, then you have to change somehow. And we often hear different debate in the TV, in the radio, always. Even some very small things, they are discussed, they are debated. So the people are always, they like to challenge the authority. It's very interesting. And even though sometimes the process becomes very slow, but the good thing is that they make sure that all the decision is fair, is rational, and is correct. But I think in China, the decision making is very hierarchical, which means that very often it's a kind of top-down and not so much debate, and those decisions made by the top politicians. So I think people are very much, they are trained to follow the command, take the command and do what is already decided. So if you really want to challenge the authority, and very likely it will be suppressed. So this is also kind of, you can see the power distance. I also want to use the example of the Three Gorges Dam. Before the Three Gorges Dam was built, a lot of scientists, they were against it. They wrote a lot of letters to the, Beijing. But in the end, no one listened. And because this is a political decision, that no debate, no scientific kind of, validations, and it's not too much rational, So now, and for example, even Three Gorges Dam, besides the economic, for example, equal balance problems, millions of people have to leave their homes, the place that they have lived there for many generations. They have to leave because the place, the normal, place, are covered by water. And still now there's a lot of problems how to let those people settle down, because many of the provinces, they don't want to take care of those people. And now let's talk about the transparency in the organization of government. I think in Denmark, it's very transparent. I think this is also something Danes are very proud of, and the public officials are very honest and clean, and the nepotism is very rare, I would say. And I remember once I was searching for something, and suddenly I found a PDF, file. It's kind of Excel sheet, and they convert to PDF file. That is expense of one of the bureausmedlemmers expense, the whole yearly expense, about how many money spent on the taxi, IT equipment. I was really amazed you can find this on the internet. Just by coincidence, I just clicked. But I think this is how in Denmark. But I think in China, it is lack of transparency. And then corruption, the bribery, which is very severe and widespread. And the good thing is now the current government in China, that they are doing this called anti-corruption campaign. And during these campaigns, a large number of the top officers in the government has been, kind of being sent in a way that they have been caught and now in prison. The astonishing thing is the number, that how much money they have, for example, corrupted. Those figure is huge. It's sometimes on the order of hundreds of $millions, or on the order of $billions. You cannot really imagine that. And then the nepotism is prevalent. As of course, this is also related to the relationship I mentioned before, the guanxi. Because of everything, you wanted to do something, you have to use the guanxi, so that's why nepotism is prevalent. So because of this, as I said, the close, the tight, the collaboration between the power and the money. So in China, actually, the economic polarization is very high. So for example, in China, we have this very high Gini index. Gini index means if you have a high Gini index means the economy is not equal, very polarized. So it means rich people are very, very rich, poor people are very poor. For example, in China, according to the kind of statistic in 2009, approximately 0.4% population control more than 70% of the wealth of the country. So you can see how they are, because of this, the people with power, and they try to accumulate the wealth using the power. So you can see this is just show you some picture, give you some idea. So this is in Beijing. So this is some place, outside, Beijing. So, but that is happening in the same area. Okay, and then, so I want to show you some picture here. Those kids, they are not taking some adventure trip. This is a daily activity. This is the other kids, they go to school daily. That is in the southwest part in China. That is horrible, right? It's very dangerous. Sometimes I often say, if we spend multiple billion pounds into doing the FACE project in G20, we can spend a lit to the southwest province and to improve the education or to pave a good road in the mountain area. Okay, now when we talk about economic polarization, then because of economic polarization, so rich people can afford to buy very expensive things, but in a way that they also be quite empty. So the materialism in Denmark, here people are quite low profile, and I think people are not so keen by very luxury goods. Maybe once in a while we are proud of Danish design goods, so once in a while we buy some expensive Danish designs or BO TVs or whatever. But that is something that we like, but it's not you want luxury things. But I think in China, you often hear or see that a lot of Chinese tourists in Europe, they buy a lot of luxury things, goods like Louis Vuitton handbags, Prada, bags, whatever. I think the way that why they're so keen to buy those luxury goods is a way that they want to show their identity. They want to show that I'm able to afford it, because they have nothing to show. That is something they want to show that I'm different, I'm able to afford it. And the problem is, because of this, it will have a kind of huge impact of the moral basis and the values of those young generations. For example, also because of this so-called social pressure or peer pressure, that, for example, if your neighbor are all able to afford this and you are not able to afford this, then you're feeling, So in Denmark, we know that Danes is the happiness nation in the world. Even though we don't have too much luxury goods, but we are happy. But in China, even though a lot of people are able to afford, because in China now is the economic growth very fast, in China has a big middle class. So they are getting more and more rich, and they are able to afford luxury goods, but still, I don't think that they are particularly happy. So, for example, when I was in China in this summer, I can see there's so many luxury cars, a lot of cars, even I don't know the name about it, and even in the residential area where my parents live, and very normal residential area, a lot of luxury car parked there, So you seldom see, there's so many. For example, if people want to buy, people buy BMW or Mercedes. Seldom I see Volkswagen or Toyota, all luxury cars, but it's not so common in Denmark. So, but you know, China has, as I said, grow very fast. And always, with also technology, also very fast. I also want to show you a small. This is a Swedish tourist. This is high speed a lot of, negative or things of some facts, but also China, the technology, because we are engineers, we also need to know that the technology is developed very fast and also very advanced. This also is something that as engineer we should learn from China. And so this one, as you probably already see the text that this Swedish tourist, he is making investigation. He is working for some railway kind of office in Sweden, and they want to investigate the technology in China. So that's why he want to see how good of the train is. But the experiment proves that the technology of high-speed rail in China is quite good.
And they trust at 300 kilometers an hour.
But that I think that this number you can trust. Yes. If not 300, but at least maybe 295. I think this from technical perspective they have to fulfill that. Of course, there's a small margin there. So, but still, after have been living here for many years, and I know that China now with economic fast growth and with technology advances, that the hard power is increased dramatically, but still the soft power of China is still rather weak internationally. So now I have a much deeper understanding of what Martin Luther said, that the prosperity of a country depends not on the abundance of its revenue, nor on the strength of its fortification, nor on the beauty of its public buildings, but it consists in the number of cultivated citizens, in its men of education, enlightenment, and character. Here are to be found its true interests, its chief strengths, its real power. And I hope one day China have both the hard power and the soft power. And as a Dane, I think you should be proud of the value you have and to be proud of the power that you have. Okay, so for now I'll quickly wrap. I think the time is going to run up. And if you look at the genuine, traditional Chinese culture, that is mostly based on the Confucianism, that is very focused on the humanity. We say that 仁义礼智信, that means benevolence, the righteousness, the propriety, the wisdom, and integrity, and also many other good values are cherished through the 5,000 years Chinese history. And if you wanted to know more about nowadays China, I think there's some, the first video I show you, that is from the China, the strength and turmoil. I think this was very good TV kind of a documentary. You can look at it. They have 3 episodes. And there's also a new documentary about I haven't talked about that. It was Under the Dome. That is one of the Chinese TV reporter, Tai Jing. She made this documentary using her own money. It's very interesting to investigate what is really behind, what is the reasons that the Chinese, China, the smog happened. And also there's interesting thing is the film, very good film, is an award-winning film, Free China, The Courage to Believe, is made by Michael Perman and NTD-TV. And there's recently in July, I saw a documentary in the DR. That is won the Peabody Award. Peabody Award is it's like Oscar Award in the documentary film. And this is talking about the illegal organ harvesting, organ trade in China. It's very interesting, but unfortunately, the DR link is not available anymore because after 1 week or after some time, you cannot watch this documentary. But I saw this in July during the summer vacation. But you can look at, if you want to watch this film, you can see the website and you pay like $4 or something, you can watch this film. And there's also some articles in the Politiken. This was written by the associate professor Wu Lapong from Hostel University. He has done research about China more than 20 years, and he has deep insights about China. I think they are very, even though it was published around 2008 or something like that, but it's still quite relevant if you wanted to know more about China. Okay, thank you very much for your attention. So we have 4 minutes left. If you have any questions, please. Any questions or comments, and you're all more than welcome.
Yes, when we see television news reports from China now